Howdy my totally as always Tubular gamers, we're back with, you guessed it, another video. Thanks for coming back to the channel. Now 2023, it's done. It's over, it came and went, it saw, it left, whatever you want to say about it, it's done. Now personally speaking, 2023, it had a lot of ups and downs. The first half certainly had quite a bit of positives. There was a lot of good, but that second half of 2023, it kind of all came crashing down. I lost my job at Insomniac, lost some family members, had to move back home. There was a lot of negatives. However, despite all that, two things really did stay consistent. I made videos and I played video games. I played a lot of video games, like a metric ton of video games. I played so many games in 2023. And so with that, it's time to reflect. It's that time of year again. It's time for another Conquering the Backlog video. This is year 4, the 2024 edition. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this series or maybe want some context or don't know what to expect from this video, let me give that to you. Let me give you the background, the history, a little story time with Jonathan. Hopefully this isn't too long. Now, throughout my entire life, I've been getting games, whether they were gifts, I was buying them, Humble Bundle, etc. Lots and lots of games I was getting over the years. And in 2020 in particular, I looked at my Steam library and went, I have hundreds of games that I have never played, and I don't know when I'm going to play them. And so I'm going to take a real stab at my backlog. I want to try to finish these games that I've had on my backlog, sometimes up to 10 years. And since then, I've really tried to finish as many games as I possibly can. I've kind of made it my life's mission to finish as many games as I physically can and to talk about them. And yeah, that's what I've been doing the last couple of years. In 2020, I finished 101 games. In 2021, I finished 126 games. In 2022, I finished 128 games. And now I can tell you in 2023, I finished 120 games. And so I'm showing it here. These are all of the games I finished in 2023. Feel free to pause if you're curious to know what I'm playing. Now, what I consider finishing a game is getting to the credits. It doesn't necessarily mean completing, 100%ing, getting all the achievements. No, just getting to the end of the game is what I consider finishing. And so as someone who's proven to get results, I thought I would share some tips and tricks and just some methodologies, ideas I follow to conquering your backlog. You know, my backlog has gotten significantly smaller than when I started a couple years ago, and I realized there's a lot of people in a similar position as myself where they have dozens if not hundreds of games to finish and going, how the hell am I going to do this? That's what we're here to talk about today. And so today I'm going to hit you with 8 tips and tricks to conquering your backlog. And as always, let me know down below some methods you use to conquer your backlog, some tips you might have. This is a shared space. This is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Everybody's different. There's no wrong way to go about this. I love reading the comments and interacting with everybody and seeing how everyone else conquers their backlog. Over the last couple years, I've seen other people pop up with videos of their own of how they conquer their backlog. I think that's great. All I got to say is I've been at this for years now. I've got stats, I've got numbers. I'd love to hear everyone else's stats. It's really fun to talk about this stuff. You know what? I've been rambling for this intro. Let's just get right into the tips. As always, please like, share, comment, subscribe. We got the super thanks and the Patreon. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. I really do appreciate it. Seriously. Thank you for being you. You're awesome. Now let's get to tip number 1. Now, tip number 1 might not seem like a tip. It's actually a question, and that question is a backlog for you? I know to many this is probably a really silly question, and you'll just go, duh, of course. How else am I going to log everything I bought that I need to play? Like, how am I going to know what I bought ages ago that I need to play now? See, then yes, the backlog is for you. But you got to also realize that not everyone is wired the same way. Not everyone thinks like that. Not everyone behaves like that. You got to remember that there are tons and tons of people out there who don't think like that to play video games. Some people really do just play whatever they feel like playing. Some people just play multiplayer games forever. I've had some people tell me that it actually can be very stressful on them to have a backlog or to look at this giant list of games that they need to finish. And for those people, that's why I ask, is a backlog for you? Is this the right way to go about this? Like, I don't mean to get too philosophical or granular so early in the video. It's really just me saying like, hey, no two people are the same. Not everyone thinks the same way. And you know, the backlog is not for everybody. It never has been and it never will. The way that you play video games is different from how I play video games. It's different from how anyone else plays video games. Some people are in it just for an hour or two a day. Some people are really serious and they play 40, 50 hours a week. Sometimes it's really all about that mindset. Do you have that grind set to finish games like I do, or do you just kind of casually play whatever you feel like playing? Look, at this point, you're probably like, okay, this guy's just rambling. What is he trying to say? The point I'm trying to say is don't feel obligated to have a backlog or a list of games you bought ages ago that you need to play. Tackle it how you want to tackle it. There's no one way about this. You can go about it several different ways. You're going to live your life how you're going to live it. Have it be the most enjoyable way. Just remember the backlog is not for everybody. Okay, that got really philosophical. I promise none of the other tips are like that. Let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2, prioritizing what's next. Now, prioritization has been a topic I've talked about in every single Conquering the Backlog video, which, by the way, I'll link all the old ones in the description. If you haven't seen any of them, I highly recommend them as well. But prioritization is something I've brought up every single time. And I'm bringing it up again because it really is that important. Figuring out what you're going to play next, knowing what you're going to play next, what you actually play next is vital to playing video game. Sometimes making the decision is more important than what you actually even play at the end of the day. There are so many ways to go about prioritization. Like, that's why it's such a popular interview question, because there's so many methodologies and so many different ways to go about it. And when it comes to conquering the backlog, yeah, there's a ton of different ways to go about it. Like, if you're someone who buys a lot of games, do you prioritize those new ones? Maybe you want to finish a console off so you can put it away for now. Maybe you got a new game in a series coming out and you haven't played the previous 3 games, but you're going to get the new game. And so you got to figure out what's going on in the story. You got to catch up. And so those previous games become the priority. Maybe you're someone who prioritizes the games that have been on the shelf that you haven't played the longest. Like, I bought that game like 15 years ago. That's my number 1 priority, is to finish this game. Maybe, and this is a very real situation that I personally have even had happen, where it's like, oh shit, this online store is getting shut down. I need to download all of these games and finish them, finally play them, because I won't be able to access them anymore because Nintendo or Sony or Xbox or whatever is shutting down their online store. And so all of those games become priority. There's a ton of different ways to go about this, but what you're going to play and why you're going to play it, very important to this entire thing. It's vital, I dare say. Prioritization really is that important. Doesn't matter how many of these videos I make, prioritization is always going to come up at some point. There's only so much time we have on this earth. You can't play everything. Trust me, I've tried. You can't play everything, so you got to figure out what you're going to play and why you're going to play it. And this leads us to tip number 3. Know when to call it, know when to throw the towel in, and know when to stop playing a game. Like I've said, we have a finite amount of time on this earth. It is not unlimited, and there are so many amazing video games you can play. If you're playing something that you don't really enjoy, you don't like it, the game's just not hooking you in, there's a deal breaker almost immediately, the main character's awful, it's grindy, you've put a ton of time into this game already, so you'll just keep playing it. Maybe you even finish the game, but you want to get 100%, but getting 100% just sucks. Well, to all those situations, all I gotta really say is know when to call it, know when to move on to the next game that you'll enjoy way more. We have a stupid amount of amazing video games. Video games are literally more accessible now than ever before. We have more options than ever before. You don't need to stick to a mediocre game or a game that's just not hooking you in. If you aren't enjoying the game, or it's not hooking you in, or you feel obligated to keep playing it, just stop. Move on to the next game. Find that next game you love. Find that next game you really do enjoy, because again, we have so many games you could be playing. I myself have been a victim to it, where I'm like, man, I bought this game like 8 years ago. I'll just keep playing. I'll just finish it. And I look back and I'm like, what a waste. I could have played so many other amazing games. Like, I remember many years ago, I finished the old Lords of the Fallen and went, what a waste. I could have finished so many other better games, and I didn't like that feeling. And so since then, I've really tried my best to just know when to call it. There were several games I played in 2023 that I did not finish. That's why they're not on that list. Games like Redfall, games like Gollum, games like Avatar: Quest for Balance. These were games that I didn't put a ton of time into, let alone finish, because as I was playing them, I went, man, I could be playing something so much better, a much better game than this, and that's what I did. I moved on. Now, obviously, my examples were all pretty terrible games, but it could legit happen to anyone with any game. Take a great game like The Witcher 3. I've had people tell me, sometimes even right to my face, they don't like The Witcher 3, they didn't like the combat, the exploration, whatever it may be. The game didn't hook them, and so they dropped it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Not every game is made for everybody. We all have different tastes. If you weren't digging it, drop it. Move on to the next game. Find that game that really calls to you, that you really enjoy. Know when to call it. So for tip number 4, we have don't be afraid to play several games at once. This one really does apply to me. I know plenty of people who have told me, hey, I can't play through more than one game at a time. I really got to focus on this. I'm going to forget what happens. My controls are going to be all messed up. I got to play just one game at a time. And hey, I'm not here to dunk on your mindset or call it weak or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to do here. This is a very positive space. We can all share how we finish games together in a positive manner. All I got to say is, don't be afraid to try playing through multiple games at once. It's not for everyone, and like I said, we all live life differently. We all have our own behaviors and patterns, and maybe you just really don't want to play through more than one game at once. All I'm trying to say is just try it. Try it and see how it goes. I used to only play through one game at a time. I really would just stick to that one game. And then I tried moving to 2 games I was playing through at once. You know, maybe I flip-flop back, and sometimes they were very, very different games from each other. One's a driving game and one's an RPG. And then eventually became 3 games at once, then 4 and 5, and here we are in 2024, and I can tell you I'm regularly playing through about 9 to 10 games at once. And what I mean by that is I'm switching between these games pretty frequently, usually playing them at least once a week. That's what I consider playing through a game is, hey, am I playing this game like every week, maybe every other week if it's a lot of games, and just really going at it. Sometimes I'll be playing through, you know, like 8-9 games, but one of those games really hooks me and I end up playing that game a lot more than the other ones. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the best scenarios, when I'm playing through a couple games and one of them really grabs me and I just push through the end really quick. But sticking to just one game, it might not be the best way to tackle the backlog. Playing through multiple games at once and switching between them very well might be the method for you. Just don't be afraid to try it. That's all I'm trying to say in the end. Just try it and see how it goes. You know, if you hate it, it sucks, it doesn't work, go to what works. But if you're like me and you're overloaded and there's just constantly new and old games that you really want to play through, maybe trying all of them, maybe playing through multiple at once is the way to go. Tip number 5, stay away from live service games / grindfest. This one, I don't think I really have to explain it that much. If you love live service games and multiplayer games, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'm not here to condemn that. When I say stay away from these games, I'm talking about if you're trying to finish the backlog. If you're trying to finish your backlog, you know, you've got a bunch of games you want to play, maybe there's some new games coming out you're going to play, you're not going to finish them by playing live service games all day. A bunch of my friends, you know, they looked at their most played games all year and it was Fortnite. In fact, a majority of them, it was Fortnite. And all I got to say is all that time you put into Fortnite, it was fun, but how many games could you have finished? How many games could you have cleared off the backlog? And you know, that really comes down to prioritization and what you're looking for, which was one of the previous tips. Again, not much explanation with this one. If you spend all your time playing just a couple games, you're not going to finish all these other games you got on the backlog. But to reiterate, there's nothing wrong with spending a bunch of time playing live service or multiplayer games. I like a game of Fortnite or Lethal Company from time to time. In fact, I actually quite like Lethal Company, but I don't spend a ton of time playing it because I got a lot of other games to play. Tip number 6, try to not replay games. Move on to the next one. Now, again, I'm not trying to condemn anyone here. If you love replaying your favorite games, you know, you've got a couple games like maybe New Vegas or now Baldur's Gate 3 that you've played through dozens of times. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what I am saying is that it doesn't take a data scientist or a genius to see that, hey, if you're replaying the same game over and over, you're not going to finish the other games on your backlog. And so instead of maybe replaying Skyrim for like the 8th time, why don't you play something that, you know, might be on your backlog or that you've been meaning to get to? Just a thought. There's nothing wrong with playing through Skyrim like 100 times. Lord knows I've played Skyrim enough times, but it's just a simple suggestion. Me personally, I actually haven't replayed like any games in the last 5 years. I could probably count on one hand how many games I've replayed. One of them, of course, being Baldur's Gate 3, and because of that, I didn't finish as many games this year as I did last year because I was so busy just playing Baldur's Gate 3 all the time. And you know, I love the game, I love my time with it, but I look back and I'm like, yeah, I didn't finish as many games this year because of Baldur's Gate 3, and that's just what happens. In the end, this is just a suggestion, you know, instead of playing through Bloodborne or Sekiro or Dark Souls for the 5th or 6th time, maybe it's time for a new experience. Tip number 7, stop getting more games. Just stop. This one I need to tell myself. I don't know if I'm illiterate or just stupid or all of the above. Like, I just keep getting more and more games. If you look at all the games I finished in 2023, you'll see that a majority of them were games that came out in 2023. You know why? Because I kept getting more games, and then I would play those, and those would get priority, and I finished those first. And the truth of the matter is, if I wasn't getting all those new games, well, I wouldn't be able to do videos on them, but I also would have been able to finish more games off my backlog. You know, I finished a good amount of games on my backlog this year, but it was nowhere near as many as I could have if I didn't play all these new games, or even as many as last year, because I really did play, it felt like, almost every new game. I mean, I played so many new releases. I did a top 40 games of 2023 that you should totally check out if you have not by now. And then on top of that, I got the Xbox Game Pass. I got one of the higher tiers of PlayStation Plus, and there's more and more games on there. And it's just like, when am I ever going to get to play the games I bought 10 years ago? Well, you got to make the time. But all of this could have been avoided if you just stop getting more games. If you don't get any more and play what you already have, you'll actually finish what you have. I know, revolutionary concept here. Stop buying more games. It doesn't matter how many of these videos I make. I always talk about this and I never listen. It feels like I've gotten further and further from this, and I'm sure in 2024 I'm going to play almost every new release. I'll try to have videos out on all of them, and my backlog games are just going to continue to sit in the backlog, and next year I'll come at you saying the exact same thing. Am I projecting much? Probably, but it's worth saying. Stop getting more games. Don't subscribe to Game Pass if you've got plenty of games to play already. You can always get more game. There will always be a ton of new games and experiences to go experience, but before you do that, why not enjoy the ones you've already bought? What an idea. Let's move on. And here we have the last tip of the day. Tip number 8, have fun. This should be fun. This is the most important tip of them all. I save the best for last. I always say this in my videos because it's worth saying in these videos. If you're not having fun with this, there's no point to it at all. This should be enjoyable. This should be a good experience. You should have fun conquering the backlog. It should be fun to experience all these games you've had building up over the years. If it ever feels stressful, or you aren't enjoying this, or you just are getting really burnt out, then stop. It's not for you. This should be fun. Conquering the backlog should be a fun experience. You know, I've been doing this for years now, finishing hundreds of games a year. I'm not burnt out on it. I'm having fun, and I'm going to continue as long as I'm having fun. But if I stopped having fun, if I really did get burnt out and I was like, I don't really want to play any more games, maybe I just want to watch movies or work. Yeah, right. But seriously, maybe I want to do something else with my time other than play video games. I mean, I regularly play video games probably 40 to 60 hours a week. It really is what I eat, sleep, breathe. It's either video games, videos, work, or I'm hanging out with my partner. That's really just my entire life, and that's fine with me because I'm having fun. That's the most important thing, is to have fun. This should not feel like a chore or a job or an obligation. This should be a fun experience. And all I gotta say to end this video is, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. You can conquer the backlog. You can finish all the games you bought ages ago. I believe in you. I think you can do it. You've got this. Good luck on your journey, but just remember, pee is stored in the balls. But seriously, good luck on your journey. I believe in you. You've got this. Here's your positive affirmations. You're going to do great. You're going to conquer your backlog. You're going to have a great 2024. I'm really hopeful for 2024. I think good things are going to happen this year, and we're all going to finish a bunch of video games. And if you want to talk to me about it, let me know down below. I'm always responding to comments. I'm trying my best to respond to them all. If you made it to this part of the video, comment hope, because that's what I'm giving you. Okay, it's pretty obvious I've been playing Danganronpa lately. Man, I love that series. But that's our code word. You made it to the end of the video. Get a nice heart from me. Things are going to be great for you in 2024. Remember, somebody loves you out there. You might not be with them right at this moment, but somebody loves you out there, and hope you all have a great year. See you later. Bye-bye.